Welcome to the Real Estate Investing Club. This is the place everyday real estate investors gather to share their best stories, biggest insights, and favorite tactics to grow a portfolio of cash flowing properties in today's market. Here's your host, Gabe Peterson.
All right. Happy Friday, everybody. It is a beautiful October the 13th. We are closing in on Halloween, and then comes Christmas. This is my favorite time of the year. I've said this on pretty much every podcast in the last couple of episodes that I love fall, and I'm going to keep repeating it because fall rocks. And today is awesome because we got Dan Templi with us from Dan. I didn't even ask what business you want me to reference, but thebusinessmandan.com is where you can find him. Dan, why don't you just jump in here? What is the business that you're from?
Sure. We have a handful of different businesses. We have a handful of short-term rentals. We have single-family rentals. We actually own a bar and restaurant too.
That's fun.
And we have different services for helping people put short-term rentals into their multifamily properties. So we've got a lot going on over here. And funny enough, I didn't even realize it was Friday the 13th until you just said that it was Friday, and then you said it was the 13th. So
that's a good point. People are going to be watching Halloween today.
Right. Yeah.
Right on. Well, yeah, I mean, you got a lot of experience, mixed use commercial, short-term rentals, bars, I guess. So you got it all over the place. And I love that because it means we can go into a lot of different areas. We can talk about a lot of things. Before we get into that, why don't we go into your story? I told you, right before we got on here, we like to start with stories. We like to hear how people got to where they are today. So why don't you take us back to the beginning of your story? How'd you get started in real estate?
Sure. So my wife and I met at Michigan State University, and we bought our first house for $15,000, and we rehabbed it with the help of my father-in-law and my parents and a lot of free labor from them. And I was working a corporate job at that point, and we sold that and we made like $70,000 on it. And we used that money to go and buy a dive bar in my local hometown. And after we did that, it's hard to get a restaurant up and going, especially one that was dilapidated.
I'm going to jump in here real quick. Why was the dive bar your first choice?
So originally the game plan, my wife went to school for education, and I was running, I don't know if you're familiar with Joseph A. Bank men's clothing store, but they sell suits, ties, all that type of stuff. And so I was the general manager there, and our schedules would just be completely opposite. And we saw exactly how our lives were going to be, and we were never going to see each other. So we decided we wanted to work for ourselves. I came from a family where my father was an entrepreneur, my mother and her dad was an entrepreneur. My dad's father was an entrepreneur. And so it was in my blood, and I knew I wanted that freedom that came along with working for yourself. And so literally the day after my wife graduated from college, we got the keys to the restaurant. So
oh wow. Why did you choose to invest in a restaurant though?
It's kind of funny how it happened. We were talking about wanting to work for ourselves, and the restaurant came up at a price that we could actually afford, and it kind of just fell into our lap. We heard about that it was for sale through the grapevine. We knew we could do good things with it, and so it was the first reasonable opportunity that came to us, and that's what we took.
Nice. Yeah, I always kind of not kind of romanticize, I guess, owning a bar or a restaurant. But I do know that it is very hard to actually run them.
Yes,
so,
absolutely.
After you bought it, did you, what'd you guys do from there?
So that was us working, 70, 80, 90 hours a week, both of us together. And then we had our first kid. And so my wife pretty much stepped into that role after about 5 years. And I looked around one day after we had my daughter, and I was like, I can't continue to do this. And so we always wanted to get back to real estate because, our first deal that we did was so great for us. It's just, we never had the capital. And once we started making enough money at the restaurant, we started hiring more and more support staff. And now we're at a point to where I have a general manager, and I literally spend maybe 15 minutes a week on the restaurant. And we have a great staff in place that does a really good job. And we have a lot of KPIs in place, to keep track of everything going on there. And we started investing, and we started with a multifamily, a little fiveplex, and we decided, we should get some Airbnbs going because we heard a lot of people doing really well with them. There weren't really a lot in our area. And once we did that, that was life-changing for us from a cash flow perspective. And so now we have 7 active right now. And we look to continue to grow that.
Nice. And what area are you in again?
We're in Kalamazoo, Michigan.
Cool. So Kalamazoo, I don't have it pulled up, but I know it's not, it's not a Los Angeles. It's a small.
Oh, no. Yeah, it is. It is definitely not a major market. And actually where our restaurant is only a population of like 2,000 people. It's about an hour south of Kalamazoo. So we definitely like to focus in areas where there's not a lot of competition, and there's still a lot of upside, but not nearly as much barrier of entry to get into.
So yeah, let's kind of talk a little bit more about that, because one of my buying criteria is the metro needs to be at least 50,000 plus.
Mm-hmm.
But I've actually seen great success. I bought outside of that specific buying criteria just because great deals fall in my lap, and I'm like, well, I can't pass this up.
Sure.
But I bought in towns that are like 2,000, 4,000, and they actually turned out to be really good. So smaller towns are mostly overlooked by investors. And if you're coming from a coastal city where the average house price is 300,000, 400,000, and you aren't able to buy in your local area, some of the smaller Midwestern towns are great because the price points are so low.
Mm-hmm.
What are the things that you look for when you're looking to buy in these smaller metros?
It depends on what type of property we're looking to get. So we buy single family rentals and long-term rent them. And for that, we're looking for median priced homes, 3 bedroom, 2 bath. And we feel like those are kind of our safe bet properties, right? Like, we know they're going to appreciate over time. We know they're not going to cash flow a ton, maybe $300 to $500 to $700 a month. If we get lucky with some bonus equity. But so that's what we're looking for with single family. But for Airbnbs, you're looking for at least a 20 to 30% cash on cash return. And it's much easier to cash flow in a market with lower barriers to entry, lower price point. And if there's hotels in your area, people are traveling in your area, and there's a lot of upside to opening an Airbnb versus opening or, just having a traditional rental. And I do both, and I believe in both, but I think it's good to have a good mix of cash flow and of safety.
Yeah. And when you're underwriting Airbnbs, just because you're buying it as an Airbnb doesn't mean that you can't fall back to a long-term rental.
Absolutely.
A house, you can do whatever you want with it.
Yeah. And, everyone's talking about the Airbnb bubble right now. But I think that's mostly kind of just dramatized through the media, because people who are buying in markets that were too hot and bought at too high of a price, when there was really a huge boom, they were doing fine. But now that things came back, I think it's just a reality check instead of living in a fantasy land, because our Airbnbs are still doing great. We're still killing it in all of our properties. And if something did happen, like you said, back to your point, we could fall back on putting them on single family, just traditional rentals, and still cash flow just fine. It wouldn't be anything like what we're cash flowing now, but it's a safe investment. So,
yeah. But the downside for those kind of markets is you don't really get the appreciation that you would in, coastal cities, in
right,
major markets that are
absolutely. It's always a trade-off between cash flow and appreciation. And, part of the reason that we like to do median priced homes is because those do tend to capture the most amount of appreciation. A lot of times, if you're buying like the house I live in, 4,500 square foot 6-bedroom house, it has the potential for great appreciation, but it also has a lot more downside if the market drops. And so there's a lot more risk there when you're looking at investment.
Yeah. So let's talk numbers real quick. So you're looking in Michigan, and anywhere in that, the Greater Lakes area, you can find pretty reasonably priced homes.
Absolutely.
What are you looking for? Like, what's your entry point in terms of a buy price? And then what are you generally looking for in terms of gross revenue from an Airbnb perspective?
Okay, so from an Airbnb perspective, we have actually a lot of different types of properties. And my favorite kind of niche is to buy small multifamilies and put them on Airbnb. So
Like
downtown
quads?
we don't have a quad. We have 2 duplexes and we have 1 5-plex. And in that 5-plex, 2 of them are on Airbnb, 3 of them are not. The duplexes kind of are my favorite. So for example, downtown Kalamazoo here, we bought a old Victorian that's in the central business district. There's not really any other houses around it. It's more of a commercial area. And in that property, we bought it for, I think that we bought it for $325. Instantly got an appraisal on it at $399, which is great. We're always looking for bonus equity. And that's grossing about $105,000 a year. And so, after you have more expenses, with a short-term rental versus a long-term rental. So you have cleaning fees in there, which are about $20,000 a year. And then your normal debt service. You're also responsible for utilities, which you're not with, a traditional rental. But that property, it just kills it. From what we put down, the cash on cash on that, I would have to look, but it's definitely over our threshold of what we're looking for. I think it's around like 35-40%.
Wow, that's great. And what is the OpEx ratio for short-term rentals? Is it usually about 50%?
It kind of depends on the market that you're in. I think that that's not a bad threshold, but
yeah, it'll depend. Cool. So for somebody who wants, like myself, I don't own any short-term rentals, but it always seems cool. In fact, we drove up to a small town here in Washington because we just wanted to buy a house on the beach, and we couldn't really justify just having an empty house. So we were looking for short-term rentals. We didn't end up pulling the trigger, but I've wanted to buy one. For someone just getting into short-term rentals, what are the tips that, going into it originally when you first bought your first one that you didn't know, kind of jumped up out of nowhere?
Sure. It didn't happen to me, but I've seen it happen to a lot of people, and it's regulations. A lot of people go into a market and they're like, oh, there's no regulations on short-term rentals here. We're good to go. That's actually one of the worst scenarios that you can buy a short-term rental in, because if the local government decides, hey, we haven't addressed this, we're getting complaints, now we need to address it, your asset that was an awesome asset that was cash flowing amazing could all of a sudden lose 30% of its value. And we've seen that happen a lot on the coastal city, call them coastal, but on the Great Lakes here. So the little towns, on Lake Michigan, people go in and there was a feeding frenzy for properties, and properties that were going, for 700,000, we're going for $1 million, and people were killing it on Airbnb. And then the city steps in and they're like, or the county, and they're like, you know what? We're not going to allow short-term rentals anymore. And those houses now are going for 600,000 because people just need to get out of them because they can't cash flow on a traditional rent on them, and they can't afford to hold them without renting them. So I think that's the biggest thing that you need to look at. You need to make sure that there is regulation in place that's favorable, and that there's not a lot of drama around short-term rentals in the market you're going into, because you don't want something drastic to change.
Yeah, that is, and that's something that's, that's really out of your control when it comes to looking at the variables that you have control over when you're going into an investment is what the local municipality is going to do about it. So,
and there are a couple states now that at a state level, they've guaranteed the rights of property owners to do whatever they want with their property. And that's going through legislature in Michigan right now. And so that would actually pull all the local restrictions and make it so that they weren't allowed to restrict that. And so I'd recommend, if it's your first one and you're going to make a significant investment, go to a state where at the state level, they said that you are guaranteed the right to do that.
That's interesting. Do you know which states, have that in place already?
Off the top of my head, I don't know the exact list. Texas is one of them. Yeah.
You'd think. Nice, man. Well, so Airbnbs, you're crushing it. How about, are you guys still doing stuff in the commercial side? Are you still going out there looking for bars, buying stuff like that?
We're not looking to add more restaurants. Like you said, it can be tough running a restaurant, and the startup phase to get a restaurant going and to put management in place, I think would take about a year to get everything kind of smoothed out. And so that's not something I'm looking to add more of. We are looking at opening a laundromat and buying commercial space for that. And other commercial space that we have is office buildings, office space. And then above that is actually Airbnbs. So,
oh, nice.
Yeah.
I've looked at that model myself before. I've also looked at opening a laundromat. They're surprisingly hard to find on market. Laundromats go pretty quickly once they
are. It's because they're cash cows.
Yeah,
and sure. Not a lot of daily operational work. So
yeah, cool, man. Well, that wraps up the main section. It is time to jump into the quick question round. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Let's do it. Starts with books or any form of education. I need 2 recommendations. One for general life wisdom, and then one for real estate specific. Before we continue on with today's guest, I want to tell you guys about a community I'm launching on School to help investors like yourself grow your own portfolio. In this community, you'll get access to all the docs I use, all the systems I've built, everything I've used to grow my own portfolio, as well as instructions and guidance on how to get out there and find great deals, how to finance those deals, and then how to manage them for great returns. Since we're just launching it, the price will be set at a measly $20 per month, and whatever price you join at is the price you'll have for life. We will be increasing the price as the group grows, so if you're at all interested in growing your portfolio along other investors, now is the time to join. I will put the link somewhere in the bio or on our podcast website at therealestateinvestingclub.com. So if you are interested, head on over there. With that said, let's get back to the podcast.
I mean, for general life wisdom, I would say Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich. I think that's a great mindset book. It really kind of changes how you look at life. And for real estate, man, I think that even though I'm not like a truist with the Burr method, the Burr book, I think by David Green at Bigger Pockets is a great book, and you can implement pieces out of that book. You don't necessarily have to, follow exactly the whole formula. But it's a great way to get into investing and to get your initial capital back.
Yeah, the Burr is, you can do that with any asset. It doesn't even have to be a single family house. So,
right. Yeah.
Great suggestions. That moves us to the next question. This is for your younger self. So let's go back to the Dan who just saw that bar come on the market, was considering buying it. Go back to him, look him in the eye, give him one piece of advice moving forward.
I would tell him to go right into real estate, and I'd probably tell him to start out as a real estate agent. If I wanted to work for myself, there's a lot less capital that you need to invest up front, and there's a lot higher upside. And I'm not because I'm very proud of where we're at now, and I just think that we could have gotten here quicker if we would have chosen a different route. So yeah,
hindsight's 2020, right?
It is.
Most people that come on the show, I ask the same question, and the vast majority of them will say they wish they got started sooner. And that's the same for me. I didn't get started in real estate until I mean, really, I didn't get started until 2020. I did a few flips before then, but I didn't like really focus in on it until just a couple of years ago. And I always think like, man, if I just done that, if I, become a real estate agent right when I got out of high school, even you can do that when you're going to college.
Right. Absolutely.
It would have made a great big difference.
Yeah.
So you're not an agent now. Do you have a
I'm
reason
not.
for why you're not adding that to your tool belt? Or
I mean, I've got a lot of different businesses going, and
Mhm. You only have so
it's
much
just
time.
not, yeah, exactly. And
Yeah.
being an agent, you have to give your customers the appropriate amount of time, and you have to put in the effort. And it's something we've definitely talked about doing, but it's not anything that's on the immediate docket.
Yeah. Yeah, I've registered for that test like 3 times so far, and I just haven't done it. It's just takes a lot of time. I know
Yeah,
there's upside, but like there's so much you can do without being an agent in real estate that it's definitely not necessary.
right. Absolutely.
All
You
right,
do
next.
save some on commissions though when you're moving properties, which is nice.
Yeah, yep,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
All right, next question is about the US. It's a big place, a lot of opportunity. Give me the single city, the single metro you're most excited about investing in today.
Man, I love our local market, honestly. Um the investment back into our community is huge. There's something called the Kalamazoo Promise, which the donors have never been actually named, but it guarantees college for anyone that goes through the Kalamazoo public schools. And so that's a huge
Oh
investment
wow,
in our
that's crazy.
community. Oh, yeah.
And the
The,
donors remained anonymous.
yeah, we
Wow.
have Pfizer and Stryker, and both of those large companies in town. And so, there's speculation on who that was. And um, another private individual just pledged, I think it was like $550 million to build a stadium downtown, which is, you can see from my Airbnb, which is awesome.
Hmm.
That's going to be a huge boom to property values down there. And it's just really exciting to see people who have been extremely successful to put it back into their community, especially since it's such a small, tight knit community. It's I really like watching it grow and continue to succeed.
Nice. Yeah, that is the ultimate kind of recognition that you've got to where you want to be, is that you're able to give back to the people that helped get you there.
Right, for sure.
Awesome. All right. Next question is about your business. The people we work with form the foundation of our business. So we're not talking about the specific people, but we're talking about positions. What were the first 3 positions you hired for in your business? And if you recreated your business today, would you hire them in the same order, hire their positions in the same order today?
I think that I'm not sure if do you know who Dan Martell is?
It rings a bell, but
So he really focuses on hiring and how to, instead of being like an operator, being a like acting like a CEO. And I haven't done this yet, and I think that I'm going to implement it very soon. But he says that the first thing that you should hire is a personal assistant that pretty much takes control of your inbox and your schedule. And he preaches that you need to track how much time you're spending doing things. And if I had to go back, I think that's the first thing that I would have hired out. And this is talking about the real estate business. At the restaurant, obviously, I had to hire waitresses
yeah.
right away, and I had to hire cooks and all that stuff. But real estate wise, I think that would be the first thing that I would do. Right now, I have VAs, I have cleaners, I have property manager. But if I was going to go back, I definitely think it would be a personal assistant for my specifically my inbox and my schedule.
Nice. Yeah, and if you don't have, the money to support someone full time, full salary for the year, you can start out with a VA just like
Yeah,
yourself.
absolutely.
VAs, I've got a ton of them, and they do wonders for saving your time. And so it's definitely a great first hire is a personal assistant or VA. All right, next question is about finding deals. It all starts with getting in contact with the seller. So, what is your favorite way to find good deals?
I think that it's one of the most basic ways, and people look at me like I'm crazy when I tell them this, but tell people that you're in real estate now. Tell people that you're looking for deals, because you never know where a great off-market deal is going to come your way. You could have talked to someone a year and a half ago, and you get a phone call, hey, my nephew, yada 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 yada, and is looking to sell this and can't because of X. And so you just have to put the word out there that you're actively looking for real estate. And yeah, a lot of times maybe nothing will come of those leads, but they come in a lot, and you'd be surprised what comes through.
Yeah. Yeah. It is crazy how, deals come from everywhere. You can be focusing all your attention on direct mail or something, and then you get a couple deals that weren't even in response to the direct mail. It's just
right. Yeah.
Out in left field. So yeah, that's great. I guess that's just in the bucket of make yourself be known, give yourself a brand, start talking about what you're doing.
Yeah.
Good advice. Next question is about lessons learned. Not everything is roses. Sometimes, shit hits the fan, and we gotta figure it out and learn from it. So what is the biggest lesson you learned through a deal gone bad?
I think so. If you're doing traditional single family, it's proper vetting of your tenants.
Oh,
yeah.
Tenants.
Oh, you tenants. Yes. Because we've always had pretty good luck, but we've gotten really bit a couple times. And when that happens, that teaches you another lesson, that you need to make sure that you're capitalized enough to, go 2 or 3 months without that property. You need a SWAN account, a sleep well at night account. And so even if you vet the best that you can, things can still happen in their life, and you have to make sure that that's not going to negatively affect your business. I mean, it's going to negatively affect your business, but not to a point to where it puts you into a bind. So those two things combined, I would say, are
big ones. And what are, I guess, the top 2 things that you do to vet your tenants?
So we use RentReady. It's an online software, and you can search for past evictions. You can run a full report on them, and then actually verifying their income. So yeah,
that is big. All right, that brings us to the very last question. This is for the listeners. I'm sure people want to reach out, get in contact with you, learn a little bit more about what you guys are doing out there. So what is the best way for people to reach out?
They can visit thebusinessmandan.com, or they can send me a DM on Instagram at thebusinessman_Dan.
Perfect. I'll put that links in the show notes. So if y'all want to reach out to Dan, just click a little more in the description. It'll pull down the full description, and there you can find his links. All right, man, that wraps it up. Thank you very much for hopping on the show.
Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. For everybody who's here with us today, thank you guys for showing up. You are the reason we do this. So if you guys have any questions whatsoever, reach out to me, Gabe with realestateInvestingClub.com. And if you guys want to support the show, all we ask, give us a like, subscribe, share, all that jazz. Other than that, hope you guys have a great week. Keep rocking real estate, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode. All right, before I officially sign off, I have a quick announcement to make. If you're interested in becoming a passive investor in one of my deals, my own company, Kaizen Properties, is looking for capital partners for our upcoming projects. We invest in what are known as recession-resistant assets, mainly self-storage facilities, mobile home and RV parks, and industrial properties. If you're interested in investing and would like to learn a little bit more about my company, our investing criteria, and some of the previous projects we've done, go to the Real Estate Investing Club podcast at therealestateinvestingclub.com and scroll all the way down to the bottom of the page. Click on the Invest With Us button. That'll pop up the investor form. Fill that out, and we will reach back out to you as soon as we can. Or if you prefer a little bit more of a personal touch, you can reach out to me at gabe@therealestateinvestingclub.com. So really, that is it. Again, it was a pleasure hanging out with you guys during this episode, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode.